And let me now introduce our speaker this afternoon. Dr. Benjamin Ngai is a general internist working at Etobicoke General Hospital in Toronto. He graduated from the University of Toronto Faculty of Medicine in 1995 and obtained his specialty in internal medicine from McMaster University. During the pandemic, he is responsible for treating and admitting COVID patients. He is currently assistant clinical professor at McMaster University. If you think the lives of a medical doctor is only around medical-related work activities and families, that is not the case for Dr. Ngai. In addition to his medical profession, he is the keyboard player of a Christian band called Silent Noise. Their mission is to inspire and encourage the world to live lives to their fullness with meaning, love, faith, and hope. In addition to this role, I know he conducts choir and leads worship in his church as well. We are so grateful and thankful that he is willing to spend some time with us today, as I know he is very, very busy. So without further delay, I would like to pass the time over to Dr. Benjamin Ngai. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy, for your kind introduction. I hope you guys can hear me. If there's any problem, Amy, you can just flag me or do something so that there's a turn problem with the video or the slides, or let me know. So I'm very happy to be talking to you today about vaccines. I hope we all at least thought about getting a vaccine, maybe you've gotten a vaccine. So before the talk, Amy, I think, and her staff had prepared some questions that we can ask you guys. So I'll pass the time back to Amy. Maybe she can help us ask like 2 questions and take a poll of, the audience and see what you guys have been doing with the vaccines. All right, Amy, can you help me with that?
Okay, sure. The first question, have you been vaccinated? So launch polling. Do you guys see the questions? Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right, and polling. So I'll share the result. You see, okay. Most people, 76%, say yes, and 24% say no. Okay, and then you want me to ask for the second question as well? For the brand name? Okay, we launch polling on number 2. Number 2, sorry, okay, sorry, this is number 1. How can I do number 2? Number 2, okay, launch. All right, 10 seconds.
It's like picking your favorite singer or something. In that poll. Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. And polling. Okay, I'll share the result. So most people has Pfizer, and then the other would be AstraZeneca. All right. Stop share. So okay. So pass the time back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amy. Since a lot of you have already got the vaccine, so maybe I don't need to spend so much time convincing you guys, but hopefully the rest I can give you some information so that you can help you make decisions about getting the vaccine. So when I begin, I just want to have a quick overview of what COVID is. COVID is a respiratory illness. Even though it can affect other organs, the primary organ affected usually is the lung, and people usually come in with short of breath and maybe have a fever or other symptoms. It's caused by a virus called a coronavirus. That's why I have the name. The word COVID stands for coronavirus disease. CO is corona, VI is virus, D is disease. So COVID means coronavirus disease. It was first discovered in China, spread all over the world in the past year, and we're in a lockdown right now, so you can probably feel the effect of COVID firsthand. This is a structure of the COVID virus. A virus is an organism that's very tiny. It's made up of mainly 3 parts. You can see that on the outside, this pink little stuff is called a spike protein. It's a protein that attaches itself into the human cells, and that helps the protein help the virus get into a human cell. So these pink stuff is called the spike protein. And then the virus is made up of a membrane that's red. It's a lipid membrane that separates the outside from the inside, and the inside of the virus is RNA. The RNA, it's a code, it's an instruction sheet.
Sorry, Benjamin. Sorry, yeah. Benjamin. I wanted. Could you share your screen?
Oh, I didn't share my screen. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I did not share my screen. Apologize. Okay, I've stopped sharing. Yes. Yeah, it didn't tell me whether I was sharing screen or not. Let me just go back to.
You might have to go back a little bit because the whole time we didn't see your presentations. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my screen. It's let me just share. Can you guys see that? See something?
Yep.
Yeah, just two. This is only this slide. Okay, cool. So COVID is a virus that affects mainly the lung, and this is the structure of the virus. You can see these pink little stuff there. This is called a spike protein, that the protein helps the virus attach to a human protein, and then it gets inside the cell because of the attachment of the spike protein to the human cell. This red is a membrane that separates the outside from the inside of the virus, and inside the virus is RNA. It's RNA is a set of instructions or codes that tells the body how to make more of these spike proteins and all the other little green, yellow, and blue proteins. So virus is a very simple structure. Proteins stuck on a surface, a red surface, lipid surface. Inside it, there is RNA or DNA. When this virus gets into your body, it will use your body cell to make another billion copy of the virus. And then you'll have a virus inside your body, and when you cough, the virus will come out and you can spread to other people. Quickly, COVID can affect mainly the lung here, and you can see on the right side, mainly the lung, but it can affect other organs too, the brain, heart, intestines, so you have diarrhea, kidneys can cause kidney problems. I see blood vessels. COVID can also cause blood, some concern about the vaccine causing blood clot. COVID itself can cause blood clot, and COVID itself had caused blood clot, and another major cause of why people died. Lung disease number one, but blood clot is actually another common reason why people die from COVID. And this blood clot from COVID is way more common than any blood clot from the vaccine. So I'm going to show a video that explains some of the technology behind some of the vaccines, because we're going to talk about the 4 vaccines that is approved in Canada and used in Canada. So I'll give you a bit of a good video that explains how the vaccines came about, what different types of vaccines are there, and we'll see. Let's see if we can see that.
In March of 1963, Dr. Maurice Hilleman was woken up one night by his 5-year-old daughter. She was complaining of a sore throat, so Hilleman looked her over and determined she had the mumps. Unable to sleep, he was struck with an idea. He swabbed her throat for a sample, drove to the lab, and got to work. 4 years later, his mumps vaccine was approved. It was the fastest a vaccine had ever been developed. Until now.
New vaccine against coronavirus.
And it's incredible how quickly this vaccine and others have been developed.
This was done in record time.
This is extraordinary. This is the
fastest vaccine development in U.S. history.
In 2020, vaccines for COVID-19 have shattered previous records, going from development to approval in a matter of months. That speed was driven by billions of dollars and a global effort. But in some cases, it was also because of a breakthrough in vaccine technology decades in the making. Something that could shrink this timeline going forward and change how we make vaccines altogether. Vaccines teach your immune system how to respond to a threat, and traditionally there have been 4 ways to do this. The 2 most common types of vaccines work by exposing you to a weakened. The weakened virus won't make you sick, but it will teach your body how to fight the real thing if you're exposed to it later on. This is how the measles and annual flu vaccines work. Another less common type of vaccine does a similar thing, but uses an inert version of a toxin instead of a virus. The most well-known version of this is probably the tetanus shot. This fourth type of vaccine works a little differently because it only uses a small part of the virus instead of the whole thing. Common examples of this would be the hepatitis B vaccine or the HPV vaccine. Some of the new COVID-19 vaccines uses this fourth method. It only uses one part of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, known as the spike protein. That spike protein is what allows the coronavirus to enter your cells. When injected into your body on its own, it's harmless, but your body will still recognize it as a foreign threat and launch an immune response to fight it off, which is preparing that spike protein for a vaccine is a process. Researchers first had to modify it, then multiply it a lot, and then assemble the vaccine itself in a lab. In fact, one thing that all four of these types of vaccines have in common is that they all require growing and transporting large amounts of live pathogens in a lab, and that takes a lot of time. The vaccine goes through many steps before it can be approved, but before anything else, it has to be developed. And working with live pathogens makes that process a lot longer. On average, it takes 5 to 10 years for a vaccine to reach FDA approval in the United States. Most COVID-19 vaccines have gotten through this process a lot faster by overlapping the different phases of human trials and starting the manufacturing early. But some vaccines have also found a groundbreaking way to speed up this first section by shifting some of the work out of the lab and into your body. Nearly every function in the human body is carried out by proteins, so our cells are constantly manufacturing them. To do that, they make a single-stranded copy of DNA. That copy is called messenger RNA, or mRNA. Each strand of mRNA holds the information on how to make one type of protein. The cell reads the mRNA, follows the instructions, and makes a protein. And that's where these two new types of vaccines come in. They contain instructions. Researchers who developed these new types of vaccines, called mRNA vaccines, started with the genetic sequence of the virus. They also decided to focus on the spike protein we talked about earlier. But instead of assembling and purifying that protein in a lab, they identified the part of the genetic sequence that creates it. And took a much faster by synthesizing mRNA and using that as the vaccine, which saved months of time and money. Once inside the body, the cell reads the mRNA and begins to make harmless spike proteins of its own. From there, your body's immune system recognizes the foreign threat and sounds the alarm. This is how the new COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna work. But the main drawback with an mRNA vaccine is that mRNA breaks down very easily. It has to be delivered inside a protective fatty barrier and kept ultra cold. Ideal for a vaccine that needs. Another effective new to consumer kind of vaccine works similarly, but uses DNA instead of mRNA, which is much more stable. The COVID-19 vaccines from AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson are this type. It doesn't require the ultra cold conditions, but it does have its own drawbacks. To get the DNA here, you harmless virus as a barrier. Over time, your body will immune response. And while they'll have a big impact on how we fight COVID-19, their real impact is just beginning. A vaccine that delivers specific instructions to your body opens up a whole new world of vaccine technologies and disease treatments for things like cancer or HIV. Finding the vaccine was a turning point for the pandemic. But the pandemic might also be a turning point for vaccines.
All right, so let's go back to the presentation. Let me see if I can restart my presentation here. All right. So hope the vaccines hope the video shows show how the technology of the vaccines that we use explain a little bit better. In Canada right now, there are 4 vaccines that are approved, and on the right side, they're all on the right side. Pfizer, BioNTech is one of them. Moderna is one of them. AstraZeneca is another one. Johnson & Johnson is another one. On the left side, Novavax is a vaccine that is developed in Montreal. It's still in the testing phase, and it's not approved yet in Canada. And on the bottom, there's 2 vaccines that are made in China. They are not approved in Canada at all. The reason why I list this file is because the left side, they are the more conventional approaches to vaccines. What happens is that in the Chinese vaccines, they use live virus and try to kill them or weaken them and inject it into the human body to hopefully elicit an immune response so the body can make antibodies against the, sorry, let me just turn off the notification here. I don't know where you're hearing my notifications. I'll just turn off notifications. Oops. Maybe not, sorry. So on the left side, these old approaches, the true Chinese vaccine use live attenuated viruses, and Novavax, they don't have the whole virus, they just made a whole bunch of proteins, the spike protein that we talked about earlier, and inject the spike protein directly into your body, and hopefully the protein will elicit an immune response from your body. These are the conventional approaches. And in the video, you see that the newer approaches of making vaccines are mentioned in the video. Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna, they use an mRNA vaccine. Basically, the instruction code for the protein on the mRNA in the middle here is wrapped up in a lipid core, lipid membrane, and they just inject this little lipid droplet with the mRNA in the middle into the body. And this little thing, the mRNA would be, the instruction will be read by the body, and this produces the spike protein itself. So they don't inject the spike protein, but you instruct the instructions of the spike protein into your body, and your body make the spike protein, and the body produces the antibodies against the spike protein and elicit an immune response. As mentioned in the video, AstraZeneca, they don't inject the mRNA directly, they wrap the RNA, in fact, and actually in this case, the DNA, into another virus that's harmless, and the virus gets in your body, get into your cell, use your cell to make the spike protein, and then your body produces an immune response to the spike protein, hopefully will produce antibodies that will help you become immune to the virus. So the top, Pfizer, Moderna, are mRNA vaccines. They're the newest technology. And on the bottom, on the right, AstraZeneca and Johnson are viral vector vaccines. They use another virus to put the DNA inside. So the side effects of Pfizer, Moderna probably is similar, and the side effects of AstraZeneca and Johnson are probably similar on another way. So when you think about side effects, probably knowing what the vaccines are made of or what the underlying thing is, probably can help us understand the side effects a little better. So left side, old technology, right side, newer technology, and all our vaccines available in Canada are all from the newer technology, and there are pros and cons with that. So I said today we're going to cover a number of myths, especially 5 myths about COVID and the vaccines. So let's go through one by one. Myth number 1, COVID is not a serious illness. I see a lot of people demonstrating on the street saying we should be allowed to go on the street, we should be allowed to not wear a mask, we should be able to go to beaches or go to have picnics or meet people, go to restaurants. And I just want to debunk that COVID is not a serious disease. In fact, the fact that we're locked in our own home will tell you that it's pretty serious. So where are the evidence? So number 1, look at this number of COVID cases in Canada. Out of 37 million people, we have already 1 million cases of COVID in Canada, and 24,000 people have died. Many people are affected too, even though they didn't die, the lung can be permanently affected. They can have disabilities. They can have other organs damaged. They can have stroke. One person I know, I didn't meet, but a patient of our hospital got so sick that she's only 20-something years old. She got transferred downtown because she was so sick. Downtown, even though she survived, she had a stroke, she was paralyzed, she was in rehab for probably 3 months after the virus. So even young people can be severely affected by COVID. Worldwide, there is 149 million cases of COVID diagnosed already, and already 3 million people have died from COVID. So it's a very widespread, serious problem that affects the whole world, and many people have died. Just quickly go through the risk of death of COVID. Remember these numbers overall. On the right side, I said in Canada, you know, there's, this is numbers in Canada. There is 24,000 people out of 1.1 million people. So the risk of death of COVID is 0.064%. And for every million people, 600 people die. Remember this number, we'll go through those numbers later on. And if you have COVID, this is all people living in Canada. If you just live in Canada, out of 1 million people, 603 people died from COVID. If you actually have COVID, what's your chance of dying from COVID? Well, there's 24,000 people died, and there is 1.18 million COVID patients, about 2% chance of death. And if there's 1 million people, there's 20,000 people dying from COVID. So remember this number, we'll go through some of the risk of vaccines later on. 20,000 out of 1 million people are the people, if you have COVID, the chance of you dying from COVID. And the overall risk is 2% if you have COVID. Obviously, older people have higher risk, like maybe if you are 85 and live in a nursing home, your risk will be around 8%, 9%. If you're young, you're 24, you're totally healthy, your risk is probably maybe 0.5%, 0.2%, but certainly much higher than some of the risk of the vaccines. Is COVID a serious disease? Well, just last week, a 13-year-old girl died from COVID in Brampton. One of my hospital, my sister hospital, Brampton Civic Hospital, it's where this patient is, I think, sent to. Another problem in BC, this is April 29th, so this was 2 days ago. Totally healthy father, 46, with 2 kids, died from COVID. I'm sure that many of you, if not all of you, would have known someone or known a friend of a friend, a friend's relative who either has COVID or may even have died from COVID. For example, I go on a mission trip to China every year until COVID come along. I go to Kunming every year with a medical team for a medical mission. And one of the person I went with, his brother died of COVID, and he's only like 50 something. So this disease is affecting enough people that one of us probably knows someone with a grandmother or family who either had severe COVID or died from COVID. Worse, it's so serious that the Army is sent to help out the ICUs. Our ICU beds are pretty full. The admission ICU 877. We used to only have 800 beds in ICU. Now, because of COVID, they try to expand. So now we have about 1,000 beds in Ontario. But if the disease continues, we might fill up all our beds. If you fill all our beds, then another person comes into the hospital. We might have to be tough decisions on, sorry, you have no beds, and we might not be able to help you. So we're reaching a pretty critical state right now, and I'm really busy. Our hospital has asked doctors who are not COVID doctors to become doctors to look after either COVID patients or help out with other patients, because the other doctors have, such as myself, we have to look at the increased number of COVID patients. So at least the burden of healthcare is quite severe. Not only in Canada, but India, you heard about India. Many cases of India, people are dying of COVID. There's not enough oxygen. They ran out of oxygen in India. People were lining up in hospitals. None of them have oxygen, and they're all dying. So it's a worldwide problem that affects many, many people. So myth number one, COVID is not a serious disease, but the truth is COVID causes tremendous illness, death, and suffering in literally every corner of the world. Myth number two, COVID vaccines are not reliable. Well, let's go into the COVID vaccines. We talked about how the vaccines are made, and let me show you some of the studies. I'm quoting you the journal title from, this is the Pfizer study. It's published in a journal called the New England Journal of Medicine. The reason why I show this is because the New England Journal of Medicine is the most prestigious medical journal in the world. It's certainly the most prestigious in the US. So any study that's published there, it's of the highest research quality, and it's also the most respected and scrutinized by the most respectable senior scientist. Every article published there had to be reviewed by some experts in the field, and not everything can be published. So any article that's published in a New England journal will be as respected as any other research. So if you don't trust the New England Journal of Medicine, then you probably have a hard time trusting any other research from modern medicine at all. So this is the study done with Pfizer-BioNTech. It actually involved 40,000 people. 20,000 people, or about 18,000, got the vaccine. Another 18,000, 20,000 did not have the vaccine. They compared the result of the two. So a study with 40,000 people is considered a very, very large study. Most drugs, we don't have 40,000 people in the study. And also you hear in the video that we put up earlier, it was done in like 3 months. A study with 40,000 people done in 3 months is probably, I don't think it's ever been done before. There are other studies such as cholesterol drugs that involve maybe 20,000 people, 30,000 people, but they're usually done in like a year or two. It takes time to recruit patients. So if you recruit 40,000 people in 3 months, it probably involve a lot more nurses, a lot more recruiting. So the government of US probably spent significant amount of money, probably super expensive, to do such a big study in such a short time. So just the fact that we could do a study with 40,000 people in 3 months, it's one of the miracles all by itself. Let me go through some of how to read at these medical journals here, maybe quickly go through. The quoted rate of success rate of the vaccine is 95%. How do you know that? Well, look at here. The numbers as N, 18,000 people had the vaccine. This is the vaccine side. The left side is the vaccine side. BNT162B2 is the Covet vaccine from Pfizer. Placebo is just some probably, either it could be another measles vaccine, or it could be just salt water put in the syringe that inject into people. 18,000 person has it. So what happened? Well, if you inject people with placebo, 162 people got COVID. If you inject it with the vaccine on this side, only 8% get it. Well, 8 out of 162 is about 95%. So the vaccine would have prevented maybe 162 minus 8, which is like 154 people. So out of 162 people that are infected, the vaccine prevented 154 of these infections. So that's why they quote a success rate of 95%. So just look at these numbers, we can tell that the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines are highly effective. 95% of the people, or 154 out of 156 person who would have gotten the illness, was prevented by the Pfizer vaccine. Mrna vaccine also published in the same journal. The results are similar. I think the number of people will be a little less, maybe 30,000 people, so a very, very big study. So I won't go into that anymore. AstraZeneca is published in the Lancet. The Lancet is the most prestigious journal in the UK, because AstraZeneca is developed in Oxford and UK. Therefore, it's published in their most respected journal. The Lancet, along with New England Journal of Medicine, are probably the two most prestigious journals in the world. The other probably is British BMJ or British Medical Journal. So any articles published there can be, to me, is totally trustable. For AstraZeneca, if you see the numbers, just a study here, on the left side is the people who got the placebo. On the right side, people got a placebo. On the left side are the people who got the vaccine. So if you did not get the vaccine, 71 people out of 4,000 got infected. And if you got the vaccine, only 27 people got infected. Maybe not 8 or 2, but 27. It's still very effective. And the overall success rate is listed here, 62%. Still very, very effective. It prevented 50, maybe 54 out of 71 people getting the infection. Johnson & Johnson also published in New England Journal of Medicine. Johnson & Johnson just came out like last month, I think, and also had 40,000 people. So it's a very big study. But this came out very late. So the approval just came out. So I don't think anybody has gotten the Johnson & Johnson vaccine yet. Maybe a couple of people. It's supposed to be available in May in Canada. So this is a summary of the efficacy of the vaccines. Let me just move my panel here. Pfizer is blue, 95%. Moderna is red, 94%. AstraZeneca 60%, and Johnson & Johnson is 68 or 67%. So all these are highly effective. Well, some people say, well, isn't 95, 94 better than 60 and better than 66? Unfortunately, we can't compare numbers when we're different studies because they're different times, different population. There's a reason why AstraZeneca was a little lower than Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. First of all, if you look at the article, let me see if I can go back a little bit. Yep, I can go back a little tiny bit here. AstraZeneca, you see the studies are done in Brazil, South Africa, and the UK, right? You know that Brazil has the P1 variant, which is seemingly pretty contagious. South Africa also has its variants. So while the BioNTech, Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna was done only in the US and also done earlier, when they were doing it, they might not have these, variants that was present in these two countries. So we don't know what the effectiveness of the Pfizer, BioNTech vaccine against the Brazil and South Africa variants. There's no formal study that were done. People have gone back and looked at now real-time, real-life data, and it seemed to be the case that Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna also is highly effective against new variants. But these studies to show 94, 95% did not have those variants. So we cannot compare pure numbers just by looking because they are not the same study, not the same population. So 60% is also extremely effective. 66% is also extremely effective. All we know that is all four of these vaccines highly effective, even in the real world, looking at real world data with all the variants. New data is coming on, no formal study published. That it seems to be the case that the vaccines are still effective among the new variants, although we don't know how effective yet. This is another study, and this is done in Israel. The reason why it's such an important study here is because the Israel study involved 500,000 patients, 250,000 people who got the vaccine, were compared to 250,000 patients they got from the Israel database, matching the age, matching the background characteristics, match around the underlying illnesses. Do they have heart disease? Do they have diabetes? Try to match to 250,000 people who do not get the vaccine, and compare what happened to the real world data. The study done before were in a control population. This is done in the real world with real people getting the vaccines. So this is the curve shown by the Israel study. If you look at the first curve here is infection with COVID. The vertical axis is how many % of people got infected. This all the 25,000 people who got the vaccine is the red curve. Who did not get the vaccine is the red curve. 250,000 people who got the vaccine is the blue curve. And on the x-axis or the horizontal axis is number of days after you got the vaccine. So we can see that maybe 14 days after you got the vaccine, initially the number of people start growing in both cases. Going out after 7 days, they start finding people getting the virus. And about after 14 days or 21 days, you can see that the curve flattens. Doesn't go up any higher after about 21 days or 28 days to the second dose. This is after the second dose. So the curve started to flatten. Whereas if you did not get the vaccine, the number of people infected over time going higher and higher, seemingly there's no stopping. In this diagram, the second diagram is symptomatic COVID. So people with symptoms, coughing, sneezing. This number 3 is people actually getting hospitalized, this diagram. People getting hospitalized, the curve still flattens here. This is severe COVID, maybe people who need in ICU, people need high flow oxygen, people who got really, really sick. The people got the vaccine also do much better. The curve flattens here. No more going up after 21 days. And you see the ones who didn't get the vaccine keep going up. Finally, there's death, the ultimate measurement. When you get the vaccine, it's almost flattened at the bottom. And if you don't get the vaccine, it keeps going up. So in the real world, it doesn't matter what background you have. The Israel data include people who are old, who are young, who has illness, who had no illness. You factor every of those people together, you see that overall in the real world, no matter what side effect the COVID vaccine might have, what side effect COVID might have, way fewer people die from COVID if you actually get the vaccine. If the whole country get the vaccine, a lot more people can be saved. And in Israel, almost everyone is get the vaccine now. And Israel had opened the schools back. They have opened back their normal lives now. So Israel is doing really well in terms of COVID after they got the vaccine. So here are some new data showing that the efficacy of Pfizer, AstraZeneca in real life, not just in the trials, are even better than predicted. So that even with the new variants coming on, it seems like, we don't have a formal report yet, it seems like the vaccine is still fairly effective or very effective against the new variants so far. So myth number 2, COVID vaccines are not reliable. And the truth is, COVID vaccines are extensively researched. In fact, there is not any drugs that are as researched as the COVID vaccines in the history of medicine. 40,000 people in 3 months. Also, I don't think there's a drug in the world that had ever been studied with 500,000 people. 250,000 people got the drug and 250,000 people did not get the drug. I don't think there's ever been a study that done. And with all the study being done, COVID vaccines are extremely effective against the disease. Even the new variant, it seems like it's still very effective. So COVID vaccines are extremely effective against the virus so far. Myth number 3, COVID vaccines have serious side effects. Okay, this is probably one of the major concerns. You've heard reports, maybe people in Hong Kong or people in Canada who got the vaccine. There's this Florida doctor who got the vaccine, had a serious blood clot and died. People in Hong Kong got the vaccine, and then, you know, every time there's a newspaper article saying that, oh, this 75-year-old guy got the vaccine and 5 days later he died of a heart attack. So let's look at the real data and see what happens. So this is the Moderna data. I want to use Moderna just because they have the published chart here. It's easy to see. The green are the mild side effects. The red are the serious side effects. This column on the left is the people who got the vaccine, and this people on the right are people who did not have the vaccine. And this table is for 65 years old older. I didn't choose the table with under 65 because I want to use it later on to illustrate for what happened to elderly people. But the table with all comers are similar. So let's look at what happens. Okay. Injection site pain or symptoms. You get the vaccine out of 3,700 people, 3,700 people. If you get the vaccine, seems like almost everyone, 90% people got some pain in the injection site, and only about 2,000 people on the placebo group get the pain. So seems like there is some reaction here. There are 92% versus 53%. You see maybe some local adverse reaction, 279 over 3,000, only 66. So 279 is still a little better than 66. So maybe these minor side effects are real. 279 seemingly is like, you know, 3-4 times more than 66. Other adverse reactions, fever, muscle aches, 2,900, over 76%. If you didn't get the vaccine, only 1,700. And grade 3 or 4 selected systemic adverse reaction, those are the fever, those are the vomiting, those are people who feel unwell. 400 people got some side effects, only 100. So you can say maybe 4 times the people got some fever or muscle pain. But note, so 4 times, but note, even if you got some like saline or salt water, some people still had some side effects. Like some people even got 1,700 people say that they have some reaction. So it would not be unusual for some people to have some symptoms, even if they got the placebo or got nothing. Some people is going to have the flu or cold or some other illnesses. So it's not unusual, or you had a full day's work. It's not unusual to have some effect, even if you got nothing. So having some reaction, not an unusual thing. Let's look at the serious side effects. Serious adverse events. Those are things you might need hospital for, serious allergic reactions. Look at this. Got the vaccine, 36 people. Placebo, 42. Hey, is placebo more dangerous than the vaccine? It's probably not a significant difference. It's just randomly slightly more people. This is not a significant result. Related serious adverse events. So these are the serious events that we attributed to the vaccine, probably it's injection or something like that. Only 2 people out of 3,700 people got any serious illness. 1 person here, 2 versus 1, no difference. How about death? 1 person on the vaccine died. Hey, you say, well, if you get the vaccine, you can die from the vaccine. See, 1 person out of 3,700 people died. Well, what about the 2 people who got the placebo died? Literally got salt water. So you have to understand, people die with other causes. Just because you see a death after you get the vaccine, you cannot say the vaccine causes death. And this is one thing I want you to remember. You hear the reports of people, oh, I got the vaccine and I died. I got the vaccine and I had fever. It must be from the vaccine. I got a vaccine. I got a serious problem. You know, I went to the hospital. I was admitted to the hospital for like 5 days. It must be from the vaccine. I got it 5 days ago. No, you cannot attribute 1 case of death, 2 cases of death, 10 cases of death after the vaccine, just because it happened after you got the vaccine. Because you have to compare both sides. What if you don't get the vaccine? So any of the reports that you hear on the news, I don't think you can trust those. You have to be a formal study looking at, if you look at 3,000 people, 5,000 people who did not get the vaccine and compare the 2 with the similar population, similar age group, similar disease group, similar background, similar diabetes, then you can say, if there's a big difference, then you can say that death is attributed to the vaccine. Otherwise, you can't say that. But one thing we know from the Israel study is that even if you account for all the side effects of the vaccines, from Israel, we had 250,000 people who got the vaccine and 250 people did not get the vaccine. All those we add together, the curve indicated that people die much less if you get the vaccine. So it doesn't matter if they have side effect or no side effect, or whether the vaccine causes death or not. People die way less if you get the vaccine overall in the whole country. So I can predict in Canada, same thing will happen. If everybody get the vaccine, it doesn't matter what side effect the vaccine has, fewer people will die if everybody gets the vaccine in Canada. Let me go here. Another side effect people worry about, Bell's palsy. Okay, what's Bell's palsy? One of the nerve in your face got affected. People say that is because some of the previous virus got hidden in the nerve, got reactivated because your immune system started to do something funny. Your face got paralyzed, so you cannot move your corner of the mouth. So this is paralyzed here. You cannot move your corner. A famous person with Bell's palsy is Jean Chrétien, our previous prime minister. So he had Bell's palsy. So even with Bell's palsy, you could be prime minister, I guess. So what happened with this? Look at the study, right? This is a study with the study combined, right? This is Moderna, 15,000 people, 18,000 people got the vaccine. How many people got Bell's palsy? 3. Placebo, 15,000. How many? 1. Vaccine, 18,000. 4. Placebo, 0. Well, 3 is more than 1. 4 is more than 0. Can you really say that's a big difference? Well, remember the chart we have here. Oops. 1 and 2, you can't really tell the difference here. 2 is more than 1, but would you say that because people got the salt water, that means it's twice as dangerous as the vaccine if you got placebo or don't get the vaccine? Maybe they die from COVID, who knows? So with a very small number out of a very big population, like 1 out of 3,000 or 2 out of 3,000, you really can't make any conclusions. This is 4 out of 15,000. So I don't think you can make any conclusion. Some people did say that if you add them together, maybe there are like 7 cases. compared to 1, and you add them together, maybe 32,000 people, maybe 7 out of 1. Yeah, maybe it's increased. We're not sure. But even if you count that case, it's 7 cases out of 34,000. And we translate remember the number we have earlier on? Remember the death of COVID? It's only 205 out of 1 million. If we go back to the earliest slides, if you live in Canada, what's the chance of you dying from COVID? If you all comers, remember it's 682. So if you get the vaccine, if you get Bell's palsy, it's 205 for every 1 million people. But getting COVID, it's actually, and dying from COVID, is actually 682. So would you choose? There's a 3-time risk. If you don't get the vaccine, there's 3 times more likely that you'll die from COVID than getting Bell's palsy. And remember, if you get Bell's palsy, you can still be prime minister of this country. Although your Instagram photo probably might not look so good. There's the other issue of blood clots. People worry about blood clots of AstraZeneca vaccine. So it's a real phenomenon. People had actually died from it, but pretty rare. So how do we know, is blood clot a dangerous problem? Look here, AstraZeneca vaccine, how many people get blood clots? 4 in a million. Well, if you use birth control pills, you had a chance of 900 in a million. So everybody, or a lot of people using birth control pills, young people in Canada, there's I don't know, 200 times more likely to get blood clots. People still use it. Average Canadian, if you just live in Canada, what's the chance of getting a blood clot? Well, 1,200 in a million population. But if you actually have COVID, I mentioned earlier, COVID actually caused blood clots. You have a 14% chance of getting a blood clot if you have COVID. Compare 4% chance of getting the vaccine. If you actually have COVID, your chance of getting a blood clot and maybe killing you is so much higher. I don't know, 100,000 times more higher, or maybe 50,000 chance higher. So the risk, even if this is a real phenomenon, dying from COVID or getting a blood clot from COVID is actually much more likely than getting a blood clot from the AstraZeneca vaccine. So if you don't have the vaccine and you have to have the AstraZeneca vaccine, I would still think that you should get the vaccine, because your chance of dying from blood clot, even being Canadian, look at this column here, it's higher than getting the vaccine all by itself. Let me go here. So the Lancet also published something about the COVID vaccines, and it says that in real life, the side effects, it's actually less than what was reported in previous studies. So whatever study that was done before, we know that in real world, there seem to be less side effects. Third, I want to give a summary that all the studies, some people say, oh, the government is cheating us, the government is hiding something. I don't know about the government in China or other countries, but in the US, the vaccine studies have a secret, separate panel of doctors whose names are hidden. You don't know who they are. They are hidden from the drug companies or the rich stakeholders. And they actually have the data of all the deaths, all the vaccines, all the trial, all the serious side effects. And they have the power to stop the trial if the vaccine is too dangerous. They have the power to publish the safety data independent of drug companies. So even the drug company want to fudge data or put out false data, they can't, because the FDA in the US has appointed a special panel of secret doctors to look over the safety data independent of the drug companies. So this is a new thing. Olden days, 34 years old, this doesn't happen. But nowadays, all the studies, at least for these studies with so many people, have their own independent safety panel that monitors safety profile in other drugs. So it's probably, I think it's pretty impossible to have safety that are fudged or hidden from public. So myth number 3, COVID vaccine have serious side effects. The truth is, most side effects of COVID vaccine are very mild. They usually are fever, muscle aches, injection site pain, maybe feeling muscle aches or feeling unwell for a day or two, and that's it. Serious side effect of COVID, extremely rare. We talked about the serious side effect. You remember the Mrna trial, Mrna slides. The serious side effect of COVID vaccines seem to be pretty similar to the people who got placebo. And there is no evidence that COVID vaccine caused death. If you look at the Mrna numbers and the same number in the Pfizer, you look at death, yeah, there are people dying from COVID vaccine seemingly on the same side of the table, but usually is what? 1 out of 18,000, 1 out of 15,000, and the same or similar number of people died even without the vaccine. So there is absolutely no evidence that the COVID vaccine causes death. And even the COVID vaccine might have caused a blood clot, and some of the blood clot may die. Dying from a blood clot from birth control pills seemingly is higher risk, and dying from blood clot just overall as a Canadian seem to be higher risk than dying from COVID vaccine blood clots. Myth number 4, older people with medical problems should not take the vaccine. Remember the table I saw, I published with the Mrna vaccine up there with serious side effects and easy side effects. And I specifically used the table of 65-year-old or older. And you see that people who are 65 years or older, if you look at the serious side effects, death or serious side effect, need hospitalization, the numbers are very similar on the placebo side compared to the vaccine side. So for that, there is really no big difference between the serious people who got the vaccine or not got the vaccine who had serious side effects. Number 2 is if you look at the Israel study, 500,000 people were involved, all ages, including elderly people. In fact, about 20% of the people in the Israel study are elderly people. And you look at the overall picture, people who got the vaccine die or have COVID or have hospitalization from COVID much less than people who did not have the vaccine. So adding everything together, you would see that getting the vaccine, even for older people, people with medical problem, people still die way less than if they do not have the vaccine. So here's some studies. COVID deaths accounted for bigger, larger total deaths among seniors. So if you're older, you're much more likely to die from COVID than younger people. So there's a more reason for getting the vaccine when you're older. If you're infected with COVID, after you got infected with COVID, your chance of death compared to people who are younger is significantly higher. Look at the bar, maybe 10 times higher, 5,000, 54,000. So if you're elderly, you actually got COVID, your chance of dying is much, much higher than if you don't. So even with your age, yes, there might be some slightly more side effects, but in the study of Mrna, the instance you think so. If you believe the case that side effects are more common in elderly patients, your chance of dying is so much higher that is nothing compared to not getting the vaccine. And this table again shows the similar stuff. Look at this top age 0 to 4, the age going up, 30 to 49, 40, 50, 60, 70. You look at the serious side effects, cases, hospital deaths, hospitalization deaths. When you get older, your chance of having any serious problem is much higher. As I said, 8,700 times more likely to die compared to, say, toddler, 95 times more likely to die if you are younger than the younger people. So if you're elderly, your chance of having a serious problem with COVID is so much higher. As I said, let's say Pfizer-BioNTech study, they have studies involving quite a few elderly patients, maybe 14% plus 9%, but 3%, maybe like 25%, 27% are elderly. And overall, Pfizer-BioNTech still do way better. Same thing, look at the study effectiveness. Elderly patients, 65, 70%. Effectiveness, 94%, 100%. So the vaccine is just as effective in the elderly population as the younger population. Moderna, same. Older than 65, effectiveness, 86%. Very similar across the board. Side effects of older patients, most common side effects, of over 55, over 65, over 60, no serious side effects, most common. Pain, muscle ache, chills, joint pain, maybe diarrhea. No deaths, not common. Hospitalization, not common. So myth number 4, older people with medical problems should not take the vaccine. In fact, the truth is older people and people with medical problems need the vaccine more than younger patients. They die much more likely from COVID. Their effect of the vaccine would benefit more because they have serious effect from COVID much more. So older people should get the vaccine more than younger people. That's why when Canada and Ontario rolled the vaccines, older people, nursing home people are first on the list to get the vaccines. Myth number 5, some brand of vaccines are better than others. Here's the differences between the viruses, between vaccines. Pfizer, Moderna, mRNA vaccine, AstraZeneca, vector virus, age group, 16-year-old, 18-year-old. So if you are 16-year-old, you can actually get Pfizer. Dosing, all 2 doses, but Johnson & Johnson's 1 dose. So Johnson & Johnson is coming out right now. There's a reason to get Johnson & Johnson. They are also highly effective, but it's only 1 dose. So a lot of people got the first dose of all these other vaccines. They haven't got a second dose yet. So maybe if the Johnson & Johnson get the Johnson, you will stop you from waiting for the second dose. Schedule is 3-4 weeks apart. AstraZeneca, maybe even 12 weeks apart. Some studies saying that if you get it later, it seems to be even more beneficial. Storage is easier to store the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines because they don't need so much refrigeration. So maybe they go bad as not as easy. So maybe if you're real life, maybe it's easier to get AstraZeneca. So overall, if we remember the diagram we had earlier, even though AstraZeneca reported at 62% and Pfizer and Moderna is 95%, we can't really compare the two because, as I said, AstraZeneca has Brazil, has South Africa. They were done at a later stage where there are more variants, more newer viruses, variants coming out. So a direct comparison is probably not true. The true effectiveness probably is around 70–80% overall for all the vaccines. We can probably compare all of these together. So comparing which vaccines, even AstraZeneca, maybe blood clot, Johnson & Johnson, US stopped a little for blood clots. We know the blood clot risk is so much lower than real life blood clot events in healthy patients. The blood clot to me is not a factor for not having the vaccine. So a lot of people say, you'll hear some of the doctors saying in a video later on, the best vaccine is the vaccine you can get into your arm right now. So myth number 5, some brand of vaccines are better than others. The truth is any COVID vaccine is better than no vaccine. So from the Canada Chief Medical Advisor, our advice to Canadians to get whatever vaccine that's available to you. So I want to show you this video. This is by one of the leading respirologists in Toronto General Hospital, and he actually summarizes everything I said today in the video. Hopefully you can remember that, all right? I'll use another screen, might be easy to see.
Many doctors on the front lines of the pandemic, I'm getting a lot of patients asking which vaccine I think is best. And my answer is always the same. The best vaccine is the first one you can get into your arm. It might take a little convincing, but let me tell you why all the vaccines we have are excellent and why they all perform about the same. Let's compare 4 vaccines approved in Canada and being used across the world right now. How do they work? Pfizer and Moderna. These were the first 2 vaccines out of the gate. Both require 2 shots. Both are mRNA vaccines. mRNA is a molecule that our cells use to produce proteins. In this case, they've built an mRNA that holds the code for the spike protein of the novel coronavirus. When that mRNA goes into our cells read the code and produce the spike protein, which then triggers our immune system to make antibodies. And in case you're wondering, mRNA is a type of genetic material, but it's not DNA, and it can't do anything to alter your own DNA. So those are the mRNA vaccines. Now let's look at AstraZeneca and Janssen. The Astra vaccine requires 2 shots, but the Janssen vaccine requires only 1. Both of these use what's called a viral vector. In other words, instead of using mRNA to get our bodies to make the spike protein, they use a virus called adenovirus. That adenovirus is harmless to us, but it's designed to contain the same coronavirus spike protein. And when our immune system is exposed to that protein, it creates antibodies that protect us from COVID-19. Now, the big question on everyone's mind, are they safe? More than 600 million doses of these vaccines have been administered around the world, including more than 6 million here in Canada. as expected, about 1 in 10,000 people have gotten severe allergic reactions to the shots, and those have mostly been people with a strong history of allergies. But the good news is that if there are any other side effects, they're extremely rare. And what about those unusual blood clots with the AstraZeneca vaccine? Well, they're so rare that even if they are from the vaccine, your chances of dying from COVID-19 in this country would be at least 50 times higher than your chances of getting one of those blood clots from the vaccine. Those risks may be different in people under 55, and more research is underway. Now, the vaccines will give you some arm pain and a day's worth of muscle aches, some fatigue, and even fever. But those are actually good things because it means that your immune system is working. How well do they work? Pfizer, 95%, Moderna, 94%, AstraZeneca, 62%, Janssen, 67%. These are efficacy numbers. In other words, how much less likely you are to get sick from the virus if you're vaccinated compared to not vaccinated. But the thing about these numbers is that they're constantly changing. For example, the AstraZeneca vaccine was just found to be 76% effective in the US trial. And those numbers are when the shot is given 1 month apart. When you spread it out 3 months, it's 81% effective. And the Janssen vaccine averaged out to 67% across countries, but in the US, it was 72% effective. But surely 95% has got to be better than 72%, right? Actually, we don't know. And that's because these studies were done at different times and in different parts of the world. Vaccines are less effective against the newer variants of concern that are now here. The Pfizer and Moderna trials were done when we didn't have these variants of concern, whereas the AstraZeneca and Janssen trials were done more recently when variants had already begun to circulate. Also, these are the numbers for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines when you get your shots 3 or 4 weeks apart. What we don't know is how those vaccines will perform when you get your shots 3 or 4 months apart, which will be the case for many Canadians. So although 95% sounds better than 72%, that's like saying the guy who scored 95% on a grade 10 math test is smarter than the girl who scored 72% on an astrophysics exam. The questions are so different that you just can't know. Now, having said all that, I'll also tell you that those numbers aren't even the ones we really care about. These are the numbers that really matter. Pfizer, 100%, Moderna, 100%, AstraZeneca, 100%, Janssen, 85%. This is how effectively each vaccine protects you against severe disease, things like ending up in hospital or dying from the virus. So when it comes to the things that we really want to avoid, they all protect us really well. So if you're holding out for what you think is a better shot, you might just be refusing a vaccine that keeps you off a ventilator in the hopes of getting one that might protect you better from getting the sniffles. So if you're lucky enough to be offered a vaccine, go get it. The sooner we can all do that, the sooner we'll get through this pandemic together.
Hang on. What if my hoodie is accidentally worn by my cousin Stephen?
So I hope probably could have watched the last video and skipped on my whole talk here. So in summary, COVID causes tremendous illness, death, and suffering in literally every corner of the world. Number 2, COVID vaccines are extremely effective and safe. And number 3, everybody should get the vaccine. Older people and people with medical problems will benefit more from the vaccine. Thank you. This slide says, my family believes vaccines do more harm than good. Oh, this vaccine isn't for your child. It is short of common sense for you. Okay, I can entertain any questions you might have.
Okay, so if any one of you have any questions, please speak up. You can turn off your mic, or I actually have some in here in the chat box, but I have to go to the beginning. Let me see. Okay, this one is written in Cantonese, so I'm assuming all of you understand Cantonese, and I'm not going to translate for now. It said 美國喺境裏邊打咗第一針之後咧，一定要喺21 to 28 days 完成第二針 ，otherwise 佢就會冇效噶啦。但係加拿大就唔得，咁有啲咩可以補救咧？可唔可以去美國打第二針咧？
我覺得我唔知點解話冇效。其實你打第一針之後，冇一個研究係證明到係打幾耐先有效嘅。因為全部嘅 study 咧，佢哋淨係譬如Moderna 就係 4個禮拜啦 ，Pfizer 3個禮拜啦。咁因為佢哋冇做過多過4個禮拜，所以我哋唔可以完全肯定究竟打咗如果4個禮拜內過會有咩問題。所以我覺得完全唔正確就係如果即係4個禮拜之後打就冇效嘅。第二就係如果 AstraZeneca 嘅話咧，咁有 AstraZeneca 都係4個禮拜，咁但係 AstraZeneca 佢話4個禮拜咧，有人真係做過，原來內過4個禮拜好似仲有效啲添。你頭先睇到Dr. Gupta 佢講話。原本 AstraZeneca 個 study 係62% 嘅，但係如果你去到3個月之後打，可能82%喎。咁 again 呢啲唔係 head to head，所以我哋唔可以完全正確。但係起碼 AstraZeneca 個 vaccine 咧，佢講到咧就係話係3個月之後，似乎仲可能 at least as good，可能好過4個禮拜啦 AstraZeneca。咁所以 at least for AstraZeneca 3個月起碼係完全 OK 嘅，但係就唔係一個即係有4萬人嘅 study 或者1萬幾人嘅 study 咯。咁如果 Pfizer BioNTech 或者 Moderna 咧就冇 study， 咁所以我哋唔知道。加拿大係因為唔夠 vaccine 先咁做，咁有啲人覺得哇咁搞錯咁。咁呢個我覺得係一個政府決定，同埋就算有咗 one dose of vaccine，Pfizer BioNTech after one dose 個 effectiveness 都係80幾% 嘅，即係95跌到82咁啦。咁所以亦都有一個 Pfizer 嗰個 CEO 出嚟講話，啲人打2針，可能有啲人都打多針喎，所以冇人知道其實打幾多針，因為我哋都未到夠1年，冇一隻 vaccine last 到夠1年，所以冇人知係幾耐。咁所以我覺得咧，未必需要走去美國打嘅。總之有時間俾你打就 OK， 因為起碼而家如果打咗 Pfizer 或者 Moderna 咧，起碼都有80幾% effectiveness。咁其實我覺得所有 vaccine 咧加埋晒嘅 effectiveness 都係80幾%， which is way better than zero。
Okay, the next question. Well, I have not taken the vaccine because I have serious gastric acid reflux and with removal of left kidney and even rash on my face. Am I okay for the vaccine?
通常唔俾打 vaccine 嘅咧，就係有幾個唔打得嘅。第一，你如果你啱啱有咗一隻 virus 或者你啱啱發燒咧，就唔好打啦，等2個禮拜之後打。如果你有Covet 嘅話咧，你應該未必需要打，同你醫生傾下使唔使打。你如果打咗其他 vaccine， 即係譬如有啲人打咗譬如 varicella 嘅 vaccine 啊，或者 measles 啊，打咗其他嘅 vaccine 咧，你都係14日之內唔會打 Covid vaccine。咁最後一個咧就係你如果有一個嚴重敏感意思即係話你要用 EpiPen， 可能你對於其他藥你勁到要用 EpiPen 嘅咁嘅敏感，咁就唔好打。咁唔係好打，咁都唔係冇打，咁都可能要打，但係你同你醫生傾過先。咁但係咧其他人咧應該係冇問題嘅。就算有人話left kidney removed， 我覺得冇 reason 唔打得，因為你諗下 Covid 其實都 affect 到 kidneys 嘅。咁如果 Covid disease 有 kidney 會唔會衰啲咧？冇人知。第二就係你有個 rash， 我覺得唔算係一個嚴重過敏反應。咁除非你研究清楚個 rash 係咩先，你同醫生傾下。但係我覺得係就咁，如果普通嘅 rash 或者敏感啊，或者個濕疹啊嗰啲咧，係完全冇問題，因為呢個唔係嚴重過敏反應。嚴重過敏就係你過敏到要打 EpiPen 或者入醫院嚟打啲 epinephrine， 要急住息住，唞唔到氣，條脷或者喉嚨腫到入醫院打針嘅，咁就係嚴重過敏反應。咁所以咧，我就覺得係除非你係咁嚴重啦，但係嗰啲其實都可以打嘅，因為你係嚴重過敏反應，對於第二啲 vaccine 有第二藥，即係唔係Covid，不過嗰啲同醫生傾下啦。咁但係如果唔係咧，其實所有人另一樣就係你如果18歲樓下就唔得，除非你係 Pfizer 16歲樓下就16歲以上就可以打。咁所以除咗呢啲之外咧，你有咩病，譬如糖尿病啊，或者你中過風啊，或者心臟病咧，即係老人家啊，或者有其他病咧，其實有其他病，你 Covid 有事或者有嚴重嚴重併發症嘅機會咧，係絕對大過你冇其他病嘅。咁雖然有啲人擔心話我有其他病，我仲打 vaccine 仲慘。咁但係睇過晒所有 study， 好似冇乜證明到打 vaccine 影響到你有其他 side effect。睇到嗰啲 side effect table 都一樣嘅喎。輕微病症就係有多啲，但係嚴重病徵咧 side effect 就係 Covid 同埋打呢個安慰劑嗰個 side effect 係一樣嘅。咁所以我覺得係冇證明到任何有其他病就唔可以打 vaccine。反而你有其他病，你因為你染到 Covid 死亡機會係大啲嘅，多數。
Okay, and then next question is how do you tell the difference between an allergic reaction to the vaccine or just a regular reaction?
我諗冇可能聽到嘅。譬如你而家打完 vaccine 之後，跟住你成日打乞嗤，成日流鼻水，咁係咪 vaccine 咧？唔知，因為而家譬如我太太，因為而家花粉敏感，佢未去打 vaccine，去緊打 vaccine 嘅時候都流晒鼻水。咁你如果打完 vaccine 先流，係咪等於係打 vaccine 咧？呢個好難講嘅。唯一就係如果你打咗 vaccine 之後，第2日有發燒啊，咁可能都係嘅，因為通常都係頭嗰2日，同埋所有 vaccine 嘅過敏反應通常都係頭嗰幾日、頭嗰10日。好少多過10日，起碼好少多過2個禮拜，差不多。如果2個禮拜之後咧，差不多就冇可能係 vaccine 反應嘅。都 after 5日之後或者1個禮拜10日之後咧，都係好機會好微嘅。咁就算你有啲muscle ache 啊，或者發燒啊，或者個關節有痛啊，腫少少啊，或者好攰啊咁咧，咁就算我諗冇可能知道係咪啦，但就算係都唔緊要咯，咪遲啲咪好翻啲咯。唯一就係如果你有真係嚴重過敏反應，譬如打完之後。條脷腫咗，個喉嚨腫咗，唞唔到氣，咁就要咁，或者全身起晒疹，咁就要去急症室睇啦。咁呢個係非常之微少，非常之罕有嘅。睇到頭先我睇到啲 study 都係1萬幾人之中得幾個咁啦，咁嗰啲係非常之少嘅。咁所以就如果有咁嘅呢一種嘅過敏咧，就要去急症室睇。Otherwise 就算我哋有時冇可能知道嘅。譬如話有個人打 vaccine，所以話有個人，譬如而家咁多香港報告出嚟又話，呢個65歲老翁5日之前打 Covet， 佢而家死咗喎，咁即係我覺得係 what can you say？ 我覺得唔係咁，但係啲人又唔信，咁冇人辦法咯。咁我 can say 即係總括嚟講，喺譬如打咗BioNTech，有2個人 out of 18萬係死咗嘅。哇！嗰2個人點算啊？咁但係有4個係冇打都死咗喎，咁點啊？咁所以你話有人死咗，你冇對面嘅 data， 即係冇打嗰18萬人，所以做 study 你唔可以淨係睇有打，你一定要比較埋冇打先係作準嘅。呢個就係做一個嚴謹嘅醫學研究，一定要睇埋，一定要睇2邊，唔可以淨係睇1邊。咁好多人就淨係睇1邊，咁就唔得咯。
Okay, next. 呢個問題係佢話 research has not been widely done for children under 18 yet.
係，所以而家冇人係 recommend children under 18打，或者應該16啦。Pfizer BioNTech 可以係16打，但 under 就冇。但係而家有人做緊 research 嘅，都頂嚟。我哋而家唯有少少安慰咧，就係咧，你如果睇到我頭先個老人家嗰個 chart 咧，即係你越後生咧死啊，或者有嚴重 Covid。病徵輸入醫院機會咧係越細嘅，越細就越少機會，所以咧冇得打都係個危險機會好細嘅。咁當然啦，嗱 Brampton 都有個13歲嘅小朋友因為 Covid 過身啦，咁數唔係0，咁所以其實我都希望 research 快啲做好就可以俾細路仔打。但係其實只要你自己打咗，同埋全部其他人打咗，咁就算冇打 vaccine 嘅人咧，佢哋受到保護嘅機會咧都係大好多嘅。呢個叫 herd immunity。咁因為有啲人真係唔打得 vaccine 噶嘛，佢真係過敏啊嘛，或者真係佢冇機會去打啊嘛。咁所以咧，其實唔係啲 vaccine，譬如有 measles vaccine 或者其他 vaccine 咧，都係要全世界人。如果全世界都打咧，咁啲冇得打嘅人咧都會受到保護嘅。所以 vaccine 唔係淨係保護你自己，仲會保護你啲屋企人。所以如果你30歲、你40歲、你50歲，你打咗 vaccine 咧，你60歲，你要保護到你屋企細路冇打 vaccine 人噶嘛？因為你自己唔染到病，咁你啲細路都未染咗到啦。咁所以你打 vaccine 其實係保護你自己，同埋保護周圍嘅人，包括16歲以下嘅人。
OK。跟住咧就係 What is the update on mixed brand? Any news on the third dose?
Okay, mixed brand, I don't know yet. I'm not totally sure. It's hard to say. Because they ran out of vaccines, some companies say that you get Moderna, you can get Pfizer afterwards. You got AstraZeneca first dose, then you get Pfizer afterwards. I don't think anybody done study on that, and still the recommendation is still should get the same vaccine. I know that AstraZeneca has earlier, I don't think it's true now. They were trying to work with the Sputnik vaccine from Russia. They said they can see if they mix the Sputnik vaccine with the AstraZeneca vaccine, see if we get better results because the RNA is slightly different. I don't think anybody published that yet, so it's something people still try on. It might be mixing the two vaccines that makes things Johnson and AstraZeneca might be actually better, but we don't know. So right now, I don't think there's anything that's proven. So right now, if you get AstraZeneca, they will still book you for AstraZeneca. If you get the Johnson & Johnson, they will still, only one vaccine is needed. Sorry, they won't make Johnson & Johnson or AstraZeneca. Only one vaccine. So if you're not sure, get Johnson & Johnson. But as Dr. Gupta said in the video, whatever vaccine you get on your arm right now is the best vaccine. And I think still now, if you get the first dose, whatever brand you have, they still recommend getting the same brand later on. Now, this might change as more studies come about, because as you know, these studies are done in record time. No drug has been put into, I can safely say that no drugs have been put onto market this quickly with this many people involved in the study. I don't think I've ever heard a drug that has finished 40,000 patients trial in 3 months. Never heard it before. And what about long-term side effects? We don't know. There's no long-term. The long-term right now from Pfizer is 6 months or maybe 8 months, because we're only 8 months. The disease only came about last year, only 14 months ago. So we don't have the long-term data. The disease have not been here long-term enough. So we have to live with what we have. We know that if you get the vaccine, the chance of you dying from COVID from Israel data is way less than if you don't get the vaccine.
Thank you. And does the vaccine safe for pregnancy?
It's a good question. There is not enough data on pregnant women. There are only very few pregnant people who are involved in studies of pregnancy. There's no data on it, or not enough data to make a conclusion. All we know is that for the people who got the vaccine, there's no evidence that any serious side effects has came about. That can be safely attributed to the vaccine. We don't, just like there might be people with a complication of pregnancy, but we don't know whether they, because I showed you a chart earlier, there are people who died after getting the vaccine. But when you compare the people who got a placebo, you see the same number or more people died. What I can tell you is from anecdotal experience. My colleague, my friend, who is working in the same hospital as me, I haven't, she saw 2 patients who were pregnant and got COVID. And she sent the person downtown to the high-risk pregnancy hospital, Mount Sinai, because their oxygen level is low. And I don't have any evidence, but if you got COVID and you need to go to Mount Sinai hospital because your oxygen level is low, the risk to you dying, the risk for the baby dying or serious complication is definitely way worse than any vaccine that you can possibly get. So if you're pregnant, you should talk to your doctors. But as far as I can tell, there is really no evidence that vaccine causes any serious side effect on the baby or on the pregnant woman. And also, again, there's not a study, it's just a lack of evidence. And the other thing is, I have seen personally, not myself, but my colleagues sent a patient from our hospital to high-risk pregnancy hospital, Mount Sinai Hospital, because a pregnant woman got COVID. Sick enough to be in the hospital.
Oh, okay. So is there any concern or precautions to take for people with autoimmune disease?
If you have a serious illness, and you should talk to your doctor before, in general, at least on the guidelines published by CDC, Center for Disease Control, and also if you look at the, from the US, look at the Canadian government's guideline, it doesn't say that autoimmune disease people should not get the vaccine. If you have lupus, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, you probably should talk to your doctor before. But in general, barring any major illnesses or major complication from the disease, in general, those people should be safe to get the vaccine too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Certainly, if you're on biologics and if you and then you have to ask a question to your doctors. But my concern is if you're on biologics for rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, if you got COVID, the chance of you getting seriously sick is also higher. So everything had to balance against the people who got serious disease also had a higher chance of getting much more sick from your existing illness. So you have to balance that out. So I think if you have rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, or you're really sick from that, you should talk to a doctor. Or your disease is active, you talk to a doctor. But if you have lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, you're not on any medications, you're always completely healthy, you're not taking any drugs for the lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, I don't think there's any concern about taking the vaccine.
All right. And the next one is, are the symptoms of the new variants different?
Again, there's not enough studies showing that the new variants cause more deaths or more serious hospital admissions or serious cases than the other variants. Some studies say that maybe it's the case, but we again have to prove it. There's news article come out all the time. It's hard to keep track. Maybe the UK variant, maybe study more serious side effect. We don't know, but at least there's no evidence. But it seems like the UK variants and these Brazilian variants, even though they don't cause more deaths, it seems like they are more contagious. So it seemed to be spreading faster and easier than the normal variants. That's why you have more, if it spread easier, that's why you have more and more of those cases in UK than the normal variant. That's natural, right? So my colleague who worked in Efficacy Health jokes around earlier on when COVID was coming about. Well, how do you know when a patient had the new variant? Well, if they came to the hospital by themselves, they may have the old variant. If their whole family come to the hospital at the same time, well, they may have the new variant. So those are the jokes that talked by my doctor. I don't think there's any proof of that, but that seemed to be more the case, that the new variants seem to be slightly more contagious than the usual wild type variants.
Okay, all right.
And another reason, one of the things that we didn't talk about earlier is, getting the vaccine might help stop new variants from emerging. We only have 3. What if we develop new variants that are more serious, that cause more people to sick or die? We don't know yet. We have no idea. There's none so far. But what can be done about that? One thing that can be done about that is everybody getting a vaccine. Because in order for new variants to come about, the virus had to replicate itself billions of times in a person, in many, many people. And just by random luck, some new variants will come out that is more contagious than the old ones. So in order for new variants to come out, the virus had to be present on as many people as possible for the new variants to come out. The fewer the people who had the virus, the fewer the chance of reproduction of the virus, the fewer the chance of replication of the virus, the fewer the chance of the replication process causing mutations that causes new variant to come out. So if everybody gets the vaccine, the cases of COVID go down significantly. It will also reduce the chance of new variants coming out.
Wow, it's good to know. Okay, and then I have this question is, if I have not had a medical check for many years, should I get it done before getting the vaccine? I don't have any special medical condition from my knowledge, but is always tired and somewhat weak.
Unless you have a serious, the people indicated on Central Disease Control's website and also Canada's own website. If you go to canada.ca, look at the vaccines or do a search, you can find out what are the people who could not get the vaccine. The people who could not get the vaccine are people A, recently got another vaccine, B, recently had a fever or had another viral infection or COVID infection, and C, people who have a serious allergic reaction that needs EpiPen or visit a hospital. Everybody else, unless you know you have a serious condition like the above, should be able to get the vaccine. The reason why we're confident in saying that is because people who actually have some medical problems, if you actually had a medical problem, your chance of getting sick from COVID is higher. So most people, even if they have medical problem, like elderly patient, let's say you're elderly and you have some problem, the heart disease, your chance of getting sicker from COVID is higher. Your chance of dying from COVID is higher. So even if you don't know, if you have an underlying disease that you don't know of, getting the vaccine probably help you live longer than not getting the vaccine. And another people who should not get the vaccine are people who are under 16 years old or under 18-year-old for Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, for under 18 for Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson.
Okay, so that is my last question in the chat box, but I'm still welcome. If any one of you have any questions, you can raise it. We can, like in Cantonese or English， 我歡迎你哋可以，我又有第二個，但係你哋可以unmute 你哋，咁我哋仍然有時間可以有 Q&A 嘅，咁樣，咁咧等我睇下呢度呢個係， Is it possible to have a delayed allergic reaction?
No. Any serious allergic reaction, I would say no. Any serious allergic reaction usually happens in the first few days, first 5 days. And the serious allergic reaction would be, as I said, difficulty breathing, swelling of your tongue, swelling of your face, rash to cover your whole body. So no. Other drugs like penicillin, if you take penicillin like over 10, 15 days, you can get a skin rash coming on like, say, 2 weeks later. You have a rash to cover your whole body. That can be solved by stop taking the drug. But I don't think vaccines cause that type of allergic reaction. Vaccine only causes what they call type 1 allergic reaction, which is the one that you use EpiPen for, a serious allergic reaction that needs hospitalization and maybe EpiPen use, and that can cause swelling of your face, tongue, and a rash that come on almost immediately within 1 or 2 days. Maximum maybe 5.
Wow. All right, so
feeling weak or feeling lousy. Some people got the vaccine and feeling tired for 2 weeks. I don't think it's from the vaccine. Maybe you overworked yourself.
Exactly, we always feel tired.
Too worried.
And we can
Or
just
locked in the basement too long.
yes, right. Okay, in the meanwhile, I'll let you guys to think about like more questions, but I would like to pull out our last poll question. So if you can please let us know. I need to relaunch polling, continue. Okay, sorry, and polling. I need to pull out my third question, so launch it. So we have 20 seconds. We just want to know where did you hear about our COVID vaccine talk, and it will help us to promote our other health talk in the future. Okay, thank you. And any more questions? So maybe in the meanwhile, I will do some.
Esther raise her hand. Esther.
Oh, okay. Esther,
聽唔聽到我講嘢？
聽到。
係，我有一個問題我想問，我係打咗疫苗嘅，但係我打嘅時候咧，我個打完之後咧，我個針口咧就係有痛咗大概2、3日咁上下，咁就跟住就冇乜嘢啦。但係跟住再過咗幾日之後咧，過咗大概4日到啦，4日。咁我就發覺我個針口附近咧就好熱啊，同埋牙好 tough 啊，嗰啲 muscle 嗰度好 tough 啊。跟住咧就開始一路紅啦，一路紅咧就都 last 咗係有成1個禮拜咁上下。咁依家都仲係有個印喺度嘅，但係就冇紅得咁犀利。咁我就係唔清楚呢啲究竟係嗰隻 vaccine 嘅 reaction 啦，定係我自己有個 allergy 咧？
多數係個 vaccine 嘅 reaction。allergy 通常會 last 咁耐。篤咗落去，有啲人可能會嗰個 drugs 入邊 stay 咗入邊咧，有啲人就覺得腫，相係硬咗幾正常嘅，因為佢腫咗有個 local reaction， 佢會 trigger 到一啲 immune response 喺嗰度。咁如果啲 drug stay 咗喺嗰度，有時佢都會 trigger 到嗰啲白血球喺嗰度去作出反應，會強過咯。咁所以我覺得係都正常嘅。通常冇咁耐咯，但係如果1個禮拜之後，有啲人如果太耐，可能會篤咗啲有冇真係發炎啦。咁如果咁即係冇話發燒啊，其他應該唔係發炎咁，所以。通常唔會咁耐，但係如果咁耐，我覺得都係應該個 vaccine 嘅 reaction 通常可以 up to 10 days 啦，我覺得 overall 可能10 14 days 嗰個 reaction， 通常係頭嗰5日到嘅啫。
但係我點解咁問咧？因為我試過食 antibiotic 咧，就試過有個 delay allergy， 咁我就成隻手咧都係 rash 嚟嘅。
係啊 ，antibiotics 會有個 delay reaction， 通常2個禮拜之後佢就 last 好耐唔會走添。vaccine 未聽過，暫時。
OK， 咁即係呢個多數都係個 vaccine 嘅 normal 嘅 reaction。
normal reaction， 我未聽過 vaccine delay reaction。
好，唔該晒。
唔該。
請問醫生，係咪一定要打完2針先有用咧？如果打到1針？
我諗因為所有嘅研究咧都係 based on 打2針。 咁你打一針嘅話唔係唔得嘅，佢話打一針有啲人做過，好似如果打 Pfizer 啊，好似一針都有80幾%咁樣樣。咁但係佢個 study 因為係做咗係2針咧，咁你如果要攞晒嗰個 study show 到個 benefit 咧，跟翻個 study 係最正宗嘅，我覺得。如果唔係，你永遠都唔知道，因為其他都係估噶嘛。譬如話 pregnancy 嗰啲係估啊，即係根據我哋嘅醫學判斷。咁但係用猜測嚟講咧，都係我覺得係冇跟足佢個步驟，就有佢嘅做嘅方法會好啲，我覺得咁。同埋你即係唔跟嘅話，好難可以決定係嗰個 benefit 有幾多咯。我 can say， 所以我覺得都係打即係佢話2次打2次會好過打1次。但係呢個都係因為佢冇 data， 如果你冇好少 data 咪冇。
好，然後咧有個問題係話睇下係咪又係5日？Is it known how long it takes for a blood clot to develop after taking the vaccine？
點話 ？Sorry。
係咪有幾耐咧？你會知道咧？如果你 it takes for blood clot to develop after taking the vaccine for how long? Like within how many days?
blood clot。
Is it known？你嚇。
我睇一睇先。blood clot 應該係頭嗰2個禮拜，如果冇記，但係頭嗰10日到啦。咁但係我要睇一睇先，5至10日。Let me just take a quick look。等陣啦。Let me take a quick look。一時揾唔到住，好似我記得我唔係我記得好清楚，好似係5至10日到 ，but I can't remember。唔好意思。但係有時個問題都係好難講，因為你有個 blood clot 之後咧，都即係有好多你有 Covet 已經有 blood clot 機會係大咗10幾萬倍，所以都好難講係咪真係個 vaccine。即係即係就算你有個 blood clot 都唔知係咪真係 from Australia， 好難講真係。同埋係某種 specific 嘅 blood clot 先係唔等於 any blood clot。
跟住咧就話如果我有打咗第2刀之後咧，如果有 fever 啦，咁有冇一個particular medicine that would be the best to take? And also if I get swollen around the area that where I got the shot, how should I handle it?
冇一種 specific 嘅 medication， 其實都幾正常嘅 reaction。好似 Dr. Gupta 話，即係有發燒可能仲好啲添，因為起碼你個免疫系統係做緊嘢啦。咁通常我哋 recommend patient take Tylenol 嘅 ，Tylenol 比較少 side effect 啲。咁 Tylenol 通常都係 extra strength 就最多係一日食8粒啦，regular strength 一日食12粒啦。咁所以8粒通常食 Tylenol 就係2粒，每6個鐘食2粒啦 ，extra strength。regular strength 就係每4個鐘食2粒。咁有啲人食 Advil 嘅，咁但係 Advil 就比較可能有啲人肚唔舒服啊，胃酸過多咁食 Advil 可能啲 side effect。咁我諗食 Tylenol 可能會好啲。咁如果個手臂腫通常都唔會好嚴重嘅，啲人唔理，有啲人中意冰敷啊，佢都 OK。
OK。咁跟住就話係咪有啲人話如果你打咗第2 dose 嘅 vaccine 咧，嗰啲 reaction is more serious than the first one? Is it true？ 同埋如果係嘅時候 ，how serious is the reaction compared to the first dose？
我睇一睇先。我有張 slide 我冇 include 咗佢。
阿 Grace 成日都 turn on 個 microphone， 你係咪阿 Grace 係咪想講嘢啊？
係啊，我想問下，係咪有發燒有反應就證明嗰啲抗體多啲？
唔可以咁講嘅。
有啲完全冇嘅，咁係咪其實打完都產生唔到抗體咧？咁點辨別自己有冇產生到抗體就冇得測嘅？
冇暫時冇人有得測嘅。我打咗，我完全冇問題。我完全冇 side effect， 我都唔知，所以我都唔知。我打咗我冇，我有個同事打咗就淨好似第二日起唔到身咁滯。我打完之後就乜嘢都冇，咁所以我諗唔同人唔同咯。
咁到底係咪反應嚴重啲嗰啲好啲咧？
唔係，冇證據證明係咁。
咁即係只能
打咗就係打咗，當冇嘢，當打咗，打咗就係當打咗。但係打咗其實你做，其實打咗冇打咗冇分別，我覺得。我打咗都係做，我到睇病人嘅時候，我都同樣一樣咁小心。Doesn't help you， 或者只不過我知心理上，我覺得可能會冇咁緊張。如果唔係打咗冇打咗，其實你可以放心啲。但係其實我都要做 precaution， 都要戴口罩，都要限聚令要遵行。
第一針打咗 Pfizer， 第二針打唔到 Pfizer， 混打怕唔怕？
冇證據證明到好定唔好咯，所以呢個係完全唔知嘅。
咁啊穩陣啲就係打埋同一種。
係啦，理論上應該冇問題，但係完全冇人做過呢個 study。
咁而家係主要就係唔一定等到21天或28天咁樣打第二針嗰度，就自己要小心啲啦，係嘛？
係啦，同埋你打咗第一針都有80幾%同90幾差唔多啦，我覺得。
咁係咪嗰啲 percentage 會跟住每個星期會下降嘅喎，係嘛？
唔係，冇人知。而家未夠耐啊！有啲人估係1年後使乜再打2針之後，1年有啲人1年後可能仲要再打喎。咁嗰個係藥廠個老細講嘅。咁啊，藥廠老細係咪想揾多啲錢咧？咁你真係好難講噶嘛呢個。咁所以佢除非要有 study 證明到咯。即係如果啲 case coming up 啊，或者證明到佢需要打多啲會好啲嘅咁一定要做個我哋醫學一定有研究報告先有出嘅。如果唔係全部都係估。咁估唔係唔好嘅，估都要作，即係估都係即係當冇 evidence 嘅時候，咁我哋就要用醫學即係常識嚟估啦。咁但係有證據好過估嘅應該。
咁知唔知道係美國嗰度加拿大啲人過去都打得咧？
加拿大有啲人我知有個唔知有個報告淨有條友喺報紙教人點去咩 Dallas 打針啊咁樣啊，去嗰度打啊咁樣。我覺得即係冇需要咯。If you really want to, you can go。但係佢使唔使佢使要 quarantine 你啊，跟住又打啊？有啲人真係做啲咁，我覺得有少少誇張。你打第一針已經個保護已經好咗好多。我覺得冇需要去美國打。不過如果你真係好中意都可以試，冇人做到你。但係我覺得打翻同一個 brand 會好啲咯。唔係好啲嘅，打一 brand 係有證據多啲。
係咁嗱，喺Doctor 喺揾緊嘅嘢時候啦，我都想同大家去做少少promotion 啦。咁啊，我哋下個禮拜亦都有 talk，咁我想同 share screen 俾大家去睇下咧。咁喺未來咧有2個 talk 嘅，我哋都會有。咁一歡迎，如果大家咧唔係好尤其是俾啲新嘅移民嚟啦，我哋特別有而家係做咗啲，因為我哋知道其實嗰度可能有好多人都會佢哋 coming from different countries or maybe especially in Hong Kong, and if they don't know our like eye care systems or healthcare system, we'll have a talk for next Thursday night. We'll have an eye care in Ontario, so our optometrists will come and introduce our like eye care system in Ontario. And also for next Saturday, we'll have a healthcare system in Ontario shared by one of our nurses. And this topic is about like introduce you how to find a doctor here, where's the closest hospital that you can go to, and how to find a specialist. So welcome if you know anybody interested. And also our service, like in 105 Gibson Center, we have a health services. So we welcome everybody if you want to seek any medical needs, or if you have any counseling or mental health needs, or any tele-rehab like a physio needs, welcome. And how to contact us. So if you want to know more, you can, like in general inquiry, you can send emails to us and then our general phone number, or visit us at 105gibson.com. But for any health related needs or question, or you still have a lot of questions you want to ask Dr. I, you can send me a message, contact me through email, amyleung at 105gibson.com, or call me at our hotline number, and I will answer your call or forward any inquiries to Dr. I, and then he will like answer your questions, hopefully. Okay. All right. So back to our Q&A. All right. So Benjamin, yeah, Dr. I, please share. Yeah.
係啊，你問題可以開咪都得㗎，開咪問冇問題。
係，你係咪話頭先有嘢 share？頭先嗰個
揾到張 slide 先，我揾唔翻張 slide。係啲有一個 study 係 show 有一個加拿大嘅 site 係講咗，直情係睇先。
係頭先嗰個問題啊，係話個 second dose 係咪個 reaction 會 more serious？
係啦，有個 study 佢 show 咗，直情 slide show after first dose、after second dose，睇下我揾到先。
咁我哋繼續可以，如果你仍然有問題咧，係啦，趁住呢個時間咁啊，可以問下 Doctor， 因為佢好忙㗎，佢好今日真係能夠嚟到，咁啊珍惜呢個時間啦。
係啊，都幾忙，因為一陣仲要翻工。
辛苦你。係，仲有冇 questions？ 仲有冇一啲唔清楚 Covid？ 或者大家有冇一啲嘢可以 share？ 譬如你打完針，有冇啲人係真係好緊要，即係 you have a very serious symptoms or reaction to the vaccine? You can share with us. Anybody? I'm thinking if you haven't got the vaccine, 你可以 share 你有咩 concern 啦？點解即係你都仍然唔係好想去打 vaccine 啦？都可以同我哋 share 嘅。
係啊，都可以喺個 type。如果唔想講，都可以 type。
係啦，有冇咧？
點解唔想打？唔敢打，唔想打。
咁我哋都可以 interest， 我哋可以係啦。
都同政府，即係同政府啊，同我哋醫院講下，即係點解啲人唔肯打。譬如我個護士，佢初時好驚，佢又驚，即係唔知唔肯打咁，我同佢講咗一輪，跟住即係話第一，你去我哋 ICU 睇下啦，嗰啲 ICU 病人即係好後生入咗嚟 ICU 咁話你同你啲 ICU 朋友傾下點啦。咁佢睇完之後，初時有啲驚，又驚唔知咩面癱啊，又驚，咁於是就唔肯打。咁但係後尾佢打咗，跟住佢都多謝翻我，因為打完之後佢個 ward 就 outbreak。
哦，呢個係佢話好似佢話有一個係 share 咗，好似 Doctor 咁，我冇 reaction，I have no reaction。佢話 in fact when I got the flu shot last year, my first one ever, my arm was sore for a few days。係啦。
係啊，通常都會腫咗。你通常你都會你就算你打咗針之後，你通常你都會摸到邊度有打咗嘅，會腫咗少少。
然後啦，佢話 recently I have mild chest pain. Can I have vaccine?
Yes， 簡單嚟講就係 yes， 呢個冇關係。
即係其實 overall 嚟講嘅 summary 就係其實有啲咩病咧都冇乜關係，我哋都可以 go for vaccine。你有冇諗到一啲係真係完全絕對 100% 咧 you cannot go for vaccine 嘅 case or 一啲 sickness？因為我即係 so far for the whole talk I can hear is 我哋其實咩病都唔緊要，都係打咗比唔打係好嘅，可以 prevent 到嘅。咁但係有冇一個乜嘢特別嘅 case 你係諗到係嗰啲人係真係絕對唔可以去打嘅咧？
I can't think of any. If you look at the contraindications or people who should not get a vaccine, there are not any medical condition. 即係唯一 the only people who shouldn't get it are people who got a recent vaccine, some other kind of vaccine. The people who had a fever and sick from Covet or sick from any other virus, severe allergic reaction. Those are the three kinds of people who shouldn't. So any medical illness, other medical illness, autoimmune disease, there's no evidence. If you have a rare disease, I think you should talk to your doctor and ask about that because they can't cover every single possible disease. But any common disease, heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, that sort of thing, no problem. You got a rare disease, you should talk to your specialist. But there is no common disease that people can't get. other than severe allergic reaction to COVID vaccine, then you couldn't.
So any more questions?
想請教下醫生，
係
有啲報道咧就講眼前就冇辦法啦，一定要打疫苗啦，要打 vaccine， 但係咧以後會有好多後遺症，會造成好多器官終身都有問題。咁其實呢啲講法真唔真實咧？又話呼吸系統，又話纖維化，一陣又話心臟系統，又消化系統，咩系統？以後都會有後遺症，腎臟又會功能低下，個腦又有問題，有冇咁嚴重咧？
第一就係即係譬如嗱，我舉個佢嘅例子就係呢個世界上任何人都係講任何嘢嘅。咁起碼喺科學上，我哋做醫生做研究咧，某一啲研究係比另一啲研究個準確性係高好多嘅。譬如果你有1萬個人做過一個研究，咁就比100個人嘅研究係準確。如果你真係有做過研究同估咧，咁做咗研究咧，一定係準過估嘅。咁我想問下就係嗰啲人，佢估話打咗 vaccine 之後10年後會有纖維化咁啦，咁佢呢樣嘢係根據咩嚟講嘅咧？嗱，我都聽過有啲醫生，通常都唔係醫生，但係都有啲醫生嘅，唔知乜醫生嚟嘅 OK。咁佢都有講，咁但係肯定唔係正統嗰個專科嘅醫生講啦。有啲人講話，我而家有好多呢個，因為刺激到免疫系統，免疫系統做咩？冇人免疫系統呢個冇免疫系統點樣喺個人體度 work 呢樣嘢根本就係一個，雖然我哋知道好多，但亦都好多唔知嘅。咁當啲人講嘅咁嘅嘢嘅時候，佢哋憑咩去講咧？我只係憑佢哋自己想像。咁佢哋自己想像係咪好得過另一啲專家想像咧？咁呢個你只係問你信佢定信啲專家？如果你好信嗰個人，佢講得好嚴重，嗰個問題就係你點解要信佢咧？佢係咪特別叻咧？如果佢特別叻嘅話，咁邊度證明佢特別叻咧？如果佢唔係特別叻，又唔係特別勁，咁你要信佢，咁我就要問下你點解要信佢 ？OK， 當冇證據係證明任何嘢，因為而家冇研究，冇人可以估到10年後呢個 vaccine 有咩問題。咁所以佢要話有問題嘅時候，呢個係佢自己作，咁佢作係啱定錯咧，冇人知。咁但係另一個嚟講，咁另一個嚟講就係咩咧？另一個嚟講就係，咁我哋點知佢冇問題？你都唔知佢會唔會有問題㗎。咁但係我覺得第一，你做你做學術研究，你話嗰樣有問題，你一定要證據先得㗎嘛。你唔需要證，你話你冇證明嘅嘢，你係唔需要證據。第二就係你打過其他 vaccine 嘅 side effect long term 都係極度少，唔係冇，極度少。而少到嘅地步咧，就算有啲 vaccine， 有啲人覺得好似會 cause 一啲 disease 叫 Guillain-Barré syndrome 啲腳嘅神經有問題咁樣。就算嗰啲有咧，都係少到非常之少，即係絕對少過譬如麻疹嘅可能係咁。但係你死喺嗰啲病嘅機會係絕對少過死於麻疹嘅。咁就算有 side effect 咧，你死嗰啲機會咧都係機會係細過你打 vaccine。咁我問嘅問題就係，第一嗰啲人完全係亂作。就算佢作啱，個機會都係非常細嘅時候。咁如果你唔打，咁你原因係乜嘢咧？譬如你怕死，咁點解你死嘅機會大嗰啲你又唔怕，死嘅機會細嗰啲你又怕咧？咁所以呢個係個邏輯問題咧，就好難講嘅。咁我只係講到咧，好多人都好驚好多嘢。咁啊，當佢驚嘅時候咧，人哋話係你驚嗰樣嘢，話有證據證明你驚樣嘢咧，咁嗰啲人，咁好多人咧就會接受咗嗰樣嘢係啱噶啦。咁但係我做醫生咧，我淨係接受科學研究嘅啫。咁科學研究冇證據嘅時候咧，我就覺得你冇證據自己斷估咧，你就揾人信你咧，你只可以係話我信呢個斷估嘅醫生，佢係叻過晒其他所有醫生，咁我就信佢啦。咁如果唔係咧，我就勸大家唔好信啲斷估嘅嘢，除非佢哋證據係證明到。咁但係呢個世界上 冇一個人可能證明到一個 vaccine 10年後會做啲乜嘢，因為我哋未去到10年。而我知道你今日死於 Covid 嘅機會咧，肯定大過你10年後有啲咩 side effect 嘅。
好嗱，因為時間關係咧，我仲有2個 question 喺度，咁我諗我哋都要 respect 翻個 time 啦，同埋阿 Doctor 都要翻工等等。咁我好快，因為呢個問題都應該唔難嘅。佢話咧，Is there a way to find out what kind of vaccine is offered at different vaccination sites, or is it just up to the supply? It's up to the site to supply whatever you receive at that site.
我都我呢個就係我嘅感覺嚟嘅。因為我都聽到啲人去，我明明嗰個西話，明明嗰個西此前打緊嗰啲 vaccine 咧，點解去到嘅時候打另一隻？我都聽過呢個故事。咁我嘅感覺就係佢哋因為 vaccine 嘅 supply 都好短，咁佢哋又盡量都尊重之前打咗某隻 vaccine 之後打翻另一隻，咁所以佢哋就盡量將啲 vaccine 平均嘅時候咧，我感覺上即係加拿大佢哋攞到 vaccine 嘅時候咧，佢哋都係邊度最需要邊度最冇咧就送去邊度。咁你嗰陣時你攞到乜就送去乜嘅時候咧，我覺得佢哋唔係特登有 plan 嘅，好似我嘅感覺，可能我錯。咁所以個 site 都未必知道自己攞到咩 vaccine，所以佢哋特登唔 publish。咁當然佢哋唔 publish 嘅原因都可能因為係唔想啲人去揀啦。咁其實你要揀冇問題嘅，但係佢我諗啲人會逼你唔准揀，但係佢唔會特登係做到你可以周圍揀咯。咁亦都揀，我覺得係你總之打任何，即係頭先 Dr. Gupta 都講，打任何 vaccine is better than any vaccine。你揀唔到，你不如打咗嗰隻算啦。你如果我預咗嗰隻，我諗住嗰度打 Pfizer，去到嗰邊 Maternal， 咁你與其走唔打，不如就打算啦。我就勸你係咁。
即係其實所有 vaccine 都係好嘅，總之去到睇下你睇下你係啊，有邊隻 vaccine 係啱你啦。去到嘅時候
嗱，咁你即係係咪好咧？嗱，我頭先一個總計數字啊嘛，每100萬人，如果加拿大每100萬就有680個人死於 Covid，doesn't matter who you are，OK？咁後生會多，後生會少啲，老人家會多啲咁啦。咁即係話，只要 Covid 嗰個 number 係細過呢個 number 嘅話咧，咁你打咗一定會好過唔打嘅。
OK。
咁而 Covid 好明顯係細過呢個 number 好多啦。Covid vaccine 令到死亡個而家證明到嘅概率係0。冇一個證明到 Covid 係死，所有 study 都係㗎。Covid 打 Covid 死咗有一個，咁冇死就冇打 Covid 嗰啲死咗有2個喎，咁你點計先？即係冇一個 study 證明到你1萬有4萬個人好，3萬個人好，4萬人個好，全部已經有幾萬個人啦。佢哋好多 side effect，打到個手臂又有痛啊，發燒有證明到有啊。你睇到我 study 係發燒證明到有啊，有啲肚屙都可能有啊。咁但係死嘅真係冇喎。咁但係 Covid 你真係會死喎。雖然個機會唔係好大，600幾歐落100萬，咁但係我都見過啲50幾，即嗱我都同你講過，大家都見過啲，都識啲朋友，或者我都有個朋友啦，我朋友嘅哥哥啦 ，OK， 咁就50幾歲咁就死咗啦，冇病喎，係咪？咁即係雖然你唔係直接有人識，咁但係即係當你見到啲真實個案加埋數字都係證明啱嘅時候，咁你仲需要咩證據咧？即係唔打死嘅機會肯定大過打咗嘅，呢個已經以色列嗰個證據證明嗰2條 curve 分開㗎嘛。唔打就個 curve 繼續上升，打咗就平咗好多。咁你即係嗰啲係所有人嚟嘅喎，唔係淨係有病冇病後生佬全部加埋晒。咁所以如果我哋喺西方醫學係睇證據嘅，證據證明以色列成個國家打咗，佢而家就可以開翻，同埋少人死過冇打。
咁我哋就 very last question 啦，就係話如果我而家又有頭痛啦，又有一個nose allergy 啦，又有 nasal congestion all happen at a time，can I get the vaccine？
等多幾日咯，即係同埋或者估嘅啫。你咁係咪因為花粉敏感嗱？我太太就係花粉敏感，一路走咗去打到，食咗啲過敏感藥，跟住打咗 vaccine。佢通常你少咁如果你真係發燒有個 flu 咁就唔好打住啦。咁但係少少鼻塞、流鼻水嗰啲冇所謂嘅。喺病緊或就冇啦嚇。
All right. Okay, thank you. I would like to end our time here. Again, on behalf of 105 Gibson Center, we truly appreciate Dr. Ai for your valuable time with us this afternoon. And also, I would like to give special thanks to Simon. I'm not too sure whether he's here or not, and he's one of the band members who helped to create a very nice promotional video for this talk. And thank you. And please keep following us for all our health talk, either in Facebook or 105 Gibson website. And thank you for all your participation, and have a good afternoon, everyone. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Benjamin.
Ngai.
Thank you.